Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Zach Celadonia.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name's Joe Kuzma, joined here by a regular here on the show, at least now. I feel like I've got you on almost all of these, and it's great to have you here, Zach Flash Celadonia. I don't know why I say these things. You're like co-host, like A1 with Brian whenever he decides to come out from. He's like Puxatawny Phil. He only comes out and sees his shadow every so often. He was in the wilderness somewhere. You know, he likes to hike and stuff like that. So that's why you haven't seen Brian for a minute. I don't even know that he's been watching the preseason games. Not that I won't say he hasn't been missing much. We've got some stuff to talk about, but how you feeling, man? You got to see the game the other night. Were you there by any chance or no?
I wasn't there.
Okay.
I was asked to go, but I didn't really have like the opportunity set with driving or anything. And
yeah.
For preseason, I wasn't too bent out of shape about it, so I just stayed home and watched. I like being in full control like that. Nothing wrong with staying at home during the preseason. I am one of the proud preseason fans, though. Preseason GOAT, I like to call myself, because I'm always into it. I watch start to finish. By the end, I may be a little bit foggy, but I'm always into it. There's always something you can look forward to watching. It isn't all just about the starters and seeing how they mesh. It's always intriguing to see the bottom of the roster battles going on as well.
Yeah, no, the reason I had asked you that was you knew about, they played Renegade for a preseason game, and like that never happens. And like when I texted it to you, you're like, how sick or something. I thought you might have seen it before I even texted it to you. I almost texted it to you like instantly. Like
on the broadcast, you could kind of get the vibe when they came back for commercial, because the crowd was like really energized and waving the towels, and it kind of was just like a process of elimination kind of thing. Like, why is the crowd so excited? And then I saw your text, so it was like pretty boom boom.
Yeah, I'm going to pull this up. This was insane for a preseason game. The North Shore was really rocking. They were rocking Friday night, Guns N' Roses, and I got to do that too. So that was fun at PNC. So they played for 3 hours, dude. 3 hours straight. Like it was like a 30-song set list, which is just, for all the knock that those guys have gotten over the years, breaking up or being into this or that, and you know, going on stage, like that was pretty kick-ass. But 64,046 people for a preseason game. There were people in the rotundas. The Bang Bang Steeler Gang guys were back with the banner up in the one corner. Like all the banners were up on the rotundas. Like you saw some yellow seats like here or there, like, you know, the chair backs. And that was just because there were the people that were in the standing room only sections in the crevices. And it was electric. But the way the Steelers played was also, I don't know, like, okay, so
what a game for that all to happen. You know, if you were down there, you're probably having a good old time.
Yeah. Brought the girlfriend, and it's her first game. She got one of those Steelers Nation Unite signs that says my first game, and it has like the Buffalo like thing. And I had to explain, because she's not the biggest football person. In fact, she had questions that she gave me on notes, and when she hears this, she's going to be chuckling. And you're going to laugh about this too. It was like, one of them was, can you wash the terrible towel? Or can you wipe things with a terrible towel? And like, you don't wipe things with a terrible towel, but it may be necessary every now and then. I know people believe in superstition. Maybe you shouldn't wash the towel. But come on, man, if you spill a Yingling over on the terrible towel, you got to do something about it. You don't want to be walking around having that thing like, and then you put it like, you know, in your waistband or in your pocket. Like, come on. Okay, there's some sanitary things you got to do there.
Terrible towel's got a health bar, like a video game. You can get it pretty damaged, but when you're down in the red, you got to wash that thing. I actually have, it's rare that I've had to wash any of mine, but I have dropped one walking out of the stadium, and it's fallen on a questionable puddle. So like I've watched it. If something like that occurs, you've got to wash it. I don't think you can wash any luck off it. I used to not wash my jerseys after victories for the Steelers, but that also kind of like runs its course after a while. They start smelling like beer and body odor. So I think eventually you got to wash it for the benefit of the people around you.
Yeah, some of the Yinzers out there do not do that. And with black home jerseys, it was an observation I don't think I highlighted last week. They wore black at Tampa, which was, I was like, oh, it's like a home. You could hear the people that were there. But to play Renegade in like a third quarter, like kickoff type situation, that place was absolutely wild. And I had to explain between that Renegade itself doesn't get played. And then I had to explain, because this is somebody that's new to Acrisure Stadium and this environment. I'm like, 14 points off of like basically like 4 plays or so is not like you're with your starters in there for the preseason, and how like not all the starters play very long against a team that is pegged to be like a Super Bowl contender, whereas the Steelers are not getting that kind of respect. Everybody has them finishing in the bottom of their division. And it's kind of where we're going to go with this game, like winners and losers. But I also kind of thought, like, where does this position the Steelers? And we'll go through like some of the plays and how this started out. But one of the observations coming in, listening to like some of the pregame radio stuff, some of the stuff on like Sirius XM NFL radio, they're talking, I forgot who was talking about it, but they were saying, are you really picking Bill Belichick and Mike Tomlin's teams to finish last in their divisions? Like, are we at this point? When is that ever going to happen? And they were also throwing kind of Pete Carroll into that conversation as well, because nobody was picking the Seahawks to do anything last year as well, which, you know, Smith is their quarterback, losing Russell Wilson. So it's nice to see, like, I told you going into this, I think I mentioned, I feel like they would have a chip on their shoulder to embarrass Buffalo if they had a chance, especially Kenny. That was his first start. It did not go very well last year, where they got absolutely walloped up in Buffalo. And I know it's just a preseason game, but some of these guys aren't going to forget about how that turned out. And they came out there, and Buffalo probably got their ass chewed on the bus the whole way back to Buffalo. Like, it was not a pretty game for them from pretty much start to finish.
They showed McDermott on the sidelines a couple of times, and he was definitely pissed off, especially like after the way the first half went and Buffalo had no points, right? They hadn't scored yet at all.
Yeah, and we got some individual performances to maybe highlight. Throw something random in there, but like Buffalo was like literally doing nothing in this game, and just to kind of give you, if you didn't get to watch it, 27-15, which really doesn't mean a whole lot in preseason. You kind of break it down into chunks, but the Steelers starters put up 14 points within the first 5 minutes, under 5 minutes of the first quarter, like first drive and second drive, and Buffalo was, it was 6 plays, 86 yards. So I was like a little facetious on there being just 4 plays, but 7 plays really by the offense with the starters in that first series, 86 yards. Let's see here. By the play-by-play, of course I don't have it. Like, it skipped down the page. I apologize. But it was like, let's run the ball, let's pass the ball. George Pickens gets involved. Najee carries a couple of times. There was an incompletion for Allen Robinson, and he was operating out of the slot. Pickett ends up finding him to move the chains on a 3rd and 7. And the thing you weren't seeing if you weren't there necessarily, I don't know if you could tell this as much on TV. Of course, Jaylen Warren, 62-yard touchdown right around that left side. You got Dan Moore Jr. playing pretty well too, but Isaac Seumalo, all Isaac Seumalo on that run. That was he.
Oh yeah, that was the first thing I noticed.
Yeah,
that was right where my eyes went, was to see what he was doing. He did phenomenal on that play. I think Jeff Schwartz broke it up this morning on Twitter for people, and Sumalo did a phenomenal job. James Daniels did a really good job as well, getting to the second level and sealing off his linebacker. Mason Cole did his job well. Dan Moore did his job well. It was a complete team effort on that run, but Sumalo certainly led the charge, kicking his guy out with Dan Moore teamed up on the one guy. And then Deontay sealing it off. Deontay did a really good job blocking and allowing Jaylen Warren kind of like to pick if he was going to cut outside or go inside of Deontay. Ended up going inside. And then the safety, Jordan Poyer, I don't think Poyer was expecting Jaylen Warren to be that fast, because it kind of looked like he had a good angle on him for a minute there. And but Warren hit the afterburners and scored. Yeah, it was a very exciting play. And because of it, I think the passes leading up to the run were kind of like not as talked about, because the incompletion to Robinson followed up by the completion from Kenny Pickett on 3rd and 7. There was a good job done by him of manipulating the pocket, stepping up in it, and then finding Robinson for a first down, and not a really large window. So even though Kenny only attempted 4 passes, he looked good again.
Yeah, yeah. He looked really good. Kenny Pickett's final tallies for this, I mean, not in very long, but 5 of 7, 71.4 completed. He did not have the touchdown pass, obviously, only 52 yards and a 92.6 rating. But what was it? I've seen it floating
Or I'm sorry,
around.
he completed he was 3 or 4 on the touchdown drive.
Yeah, 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 yeah. You're good. I understood. So, um, now I was trying to think what it was and where I saw it from. I know you saw the graphic that's floating around. I think it was Pro Football Focus was touting his full
Oh, his
numbers.
stats, I got him right here.
Yeah. Well,
He's 9 of 11 on the preseason, so only two incompletions is what they charted for him. 9 of 11, 113 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 picks, 149.1 passer rating, and he's led 3 scoring drives. He's had 3 drives and there's been a touchdown on every drive.
yeah, it's phenomenal. And to also throw another guy that was in here and playing mostly second team, but we were talking about Dan Moore. I may as well throw this up since I saw this too. I was looking up Pro Football Focus stuff, and of course, this came across. When they're good, I like to share them. Roderick Jones, 20 pass block snaps in this game. He played quite a bit, only 1 pressure allowed. He looked like a beast out there. There was
That's what you
nothing
want to
getting
see.
around him. What's that? Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what you want to see. And I know, like, some people are going to say, like, first team, second team. Like, Buffalo left some of their first teamers in there a little bit longer because the things weren't going very well, and they still didn't go well against a lot of the Steelers second teamers. So after that, the second drive that they had here, where the Steelers force a 3 and out, there was like a real quick Josh Allen pass for 8 yards, and then Cook only went to left tackle for no gain, and then they tried to find Stephon Diggs with TJ Watt getting in there, of course, and Calvin Austin with the big 54-yard punt return, which is another thing you want to see, turning on just the burners. He's really becoming the star of the preseason and showing everybody why we were excited about him last off season. So I'm really happy for him. And I said, go straight for the jugular here. Let's see what Matt Canada's got as far as the play calling chops. You don't want to see like this field position squandered. They're already at Buffalo's 25. And Kenny, I think, bobbles his head around a couple of times. There was a quote from Kenny, like post game too. If I'm going to end up butchering this like I always do, but it was something about like coverage changes the primary, meaning who he's going to. And I believe on this, one of them, Hyde or Poyer, somebody was down in the box. I forget which one's playing strong safety. Like both of those guys are really good, and I just get confused on it. They're pretty interchangeable. They're like a solid safety team, maybe one of the better tandems in the NFL. And one of them comes down and shows a single high, and then they back off into coverage, and then that's where he finds Pat Freiermuth for 25 yards and a TD. And it just reminds you. You didn't really even see anything out of Deontay. Some of your recency bias people didn't really see anything out of Najee, but it doesn't mean that either of those guys are like non-existent in this offense at all. So there's just a lot to go around. That doesn't include, well, we'll get to Mount Washington here in a second with Mitch Trubisky, but that was really nice. And then you get to see the defense. The defense did their job. There was a little bit longer of a drive on the next one, but you got to see a lot of the Steelers starters, including a lot of Patrick Peterson, and he got to kick in on some plays, and they end up forcing a punt on the next series. And Mitch Trubisky comes in, and he ends up getting a couple of different. I don't even understand it. They really got bailed out. I want to say at some point, I'll find the official tally here. Like Buffalo got penalized. Let's see here. A lot. Penalty yards. Sorry, I'm still in preseason. 13 penalties, 93 yards, but 13 penalties, basically first down. You could attribute 5 first downs for the Steelers toward 2 Buffalo penalties. And you had a couple of these end up happening while Trubisky was in. Mitch looked a little bit better in this game. I don't really have a whole lot to say. He was 10 of 13, 76.9 completed, 78 yards. He had the touchdown pass, 116.8 rating. Still really safe. Not everything was really on the money. Like I swear, if anything needs to go low and at somebody's knees, like I think everybody knows to go down there and get the ball. But it reaffirms why Mitch should be the backup quarterback. We were talking about the worst take of the week last week with the quarterback controversy, and here you go. Mitch is right back in the game.
Yeah, Mitch is a solid backup. He is what he is. Stat line like that, very high completion percentage, not the most amount of yards, helping us score. That's what I expect from a backup quarterback. So I thought he did fine. The touchdown to Connor Hayward was fit in a pretty small window, and Connor Hayward had himself another solid performance in the preseason. Solidifying what I think is a safe roster spot for him. Um, I mean, you touched on pretty much everything there. I had some stars of the game from what I saw.
Yeah.
Definitely Kenny leads that charge. That's obvious. I feel like he couldn't be doing any better. And it isn't just me saying that. It isn't just Steeler fan or Kenny bias, because just this morning on Good Morning Football, Kyle Brandt, who typically has the Steelers back in a lot of different scenarios, he mentioned that he doesn't believe he's seen a guy sharper in the preseason right now than Kenny Pickett in the whole league. That's including Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar, all the guys in the preseason. I don't know if Lamar's even playing, but he said he looks the sharpest out of anybody. And even though you're seeing it live time, he's going to continue to have doubters until we get to the season. And that's something that you can't escape, because I had an interaction yesterday with a gentleman at the liquor store, and
here we go.
I went early morning.
You're wearing Steelers stuff.
No, I wasn't. I wasn't wearing any Steelers stuff, man. I wasn't in the mood to talk. It was early morning. I just wanted to run my errands and get out. So sunglasses on, the whole nine. I'm checking out, and he asked me if I have any fun plans today. And kind of in a patronizing way, I was like, is that because I'm buying bourbon at 11:30 a.m.? I'm not drinking it right now. And I was just like, no, not really. And there's kind of like a dead, awkward silence there. So just to be nice, I was like, so did you catch that game last night, man? He's like, no, I didn't really watch it. I haven't been watching much of the preseason at all. I caught like one or two plays. And I was like, oh, okay. They're looking good, man. They're looking good. And he's like, yeah. I'm a Pitt fan, but I just don't know if Kenny Pickett's a franchise quarterback. After admitting he hasn't been watching at all this preseason, and but still talking out of his ass like that at the counter, and basically ruining my day. Not the entire day, but my for the next
morning
24 hours.
Set the tone.
He ran across my mind at least once an hour, and it was like when you have an argument with somebody, and the rest of the day you just think of the other things you could have said, like those shower thoughts. You're like, oh, I should have said this or that. Like, we didn't even argue. I was just kind of like, all right, well, have a good day. I didn't feel like getting into it, but that's the kind of stuff that you just are going to deal with until we get to the regular season and the Steelers start winning actual games. I'm happy that Kenny's doing well and he is getting more recognition out there nationally, but these people still exist out there in the wild.
And Mason didn't even get booed really at the preseason. Like, now at quarterback, number 2, Mason Rudolph, and it's like, I felt good for him. And he had an okay stat line too. I'll get back to Kenny. I actually found the Kenny thing, even though you rattled it off. We'll give somebody a visual here. Mason was 5 of 7. I actually had this wrong. Kenny was 149 quarterback rating. I was reading Mason's. Mason's was a 92.6. So, which was the lowest of the 3. Yeah, Kenny's was, I'm sorry, man. I totally butchered that. That was Mason's stat line earlier. I got him conflated. He was 3 of 4 for 75% completed. See, it's still early for me, too. 43 yards and the touchdown.
That makes a lot more sense, because I was like, man, I must have been really drinking early in the game, because I'm missing like 3 passes from Kenny in my head.
Yeah, no, and I said 4 plays, and I meant 4 passes earlier because there was the few run plays. So I was thinking that too, and I just I must have been looking at the wrong screen here. Who knows? We're still in the preseason. I apologize for that. Everybody's like, wait, what? And there's the people like that aren't our 2 percenters that probably only listened up to that point now, and you don't get the stats correction, so you can go around giving misinformation to everybody, but. Anyways, the Kenny thing, there it was. His PFF grade's 88.2. So yeah, the 9 of 11, 113 yards, 2 TDs, no interceptions, 149.1 passer rating. That's a dude right there. And for somebody to be like, we all knew it, we've all seen it, we've been watching it, training camps, we've been watching it, behind the scenes, we've been watching it happen right in front of our face. I think there's like a lot that like gets lost in translation when you don't see it live in person sometimes. Like, you could literally see like everything unfold. For me, it's almost slow motion. Like, I catch a lot of the numbers that are out there. I catch a lot of like, I'm looking at formations. I'm looking for certain guys that are out there and trying to get a feel for what they're going to do. And I was like, man, just send somebody out. Just just throw it. Like, can he like throw a dart here? And finding Freiermuth was just absolutely, that was awesome. I mean, Mitch had a little bit of a hiccup to begin with his drive, and they put in Anthony McFarland Jr. And, you know, you got like guys like Gunnar Olszewski and Cody White and guys that are trying to make this team. And I think Gunnar is a pretty good guy to talk about right now. He was kind of the leader in this game among the receivers. He let me see here. 7 targets, caught 5 of his 7 targets during this game for 41 yards, had the 13-yard long, but he seems to almost be like the steady Eddie guy that like Mitch Trubisky, especially Mitch Trubisky, I got to say. Like, I feel like Mitch Trubisky looks for him quite frequently, and I'm starting to feel like he even like returned some punts towards the end of the game. So I was like, you know, they're still kind of testing Gunnar Olszewski out in some different spots, and it's starting to get me to rethink our stance on the keeping from the last show where we're talking about 5 wide receivers versus 6. And McFarland was in there mostly with a backup offensive line, so he didn't have like the biggest numbers. He had he had terrible numbers, to be completely honest. He had a 0.2 average. He carried the ball 9 times for 2 yards. And I think some of that is Buffalo starters against backup offensive line, which doesn't bode well. But he's got to be able to create something. Like, even Najee could create something, like, against in that save. Like, Najee gets a lot of flack. I saw the thing that you retweeted yesterday. Was that like FanDuel or somebody that were like Jalen Warren greater than Najee Harris? And I'm like, let's not go there just yet. Najee, next year when Najee's in a contract year, we might be going there depending on what Warren and Najee Harris do this year. But I'm trying to see if like McFarland has a spot on this roster. So in coming full circle with this, we'll talk about all the other wide receivers. I want to kick it out to why that might open up all of a sudden. And I'll get your reaction when I mention Kendrick Green comes in at center. And he had a bad snap again at some point. I think it was with Mason. And he also, one of these plays, like, I don't know if it was a loss of yards or a quarterback sack. I'm trying to see who got sacked. Trubisky got sacked on the one, Mason maybe on the other. Like, he just totally whiffed. Like, it's very difficult. Like, he was like a feel-good story, like maybe like he's fallen out of grace, and it's like maybe the light bulb went off for this guy. Maybe they found like an extra use for him. But in order, like we said, in order for him to be on the roster, he's not going to be just a fullback. What can he do on special teams? Well, he's not doing very well, like even on like against first or second teamers on the line. They can't really play him at guard. They really can't play him at center. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he's maybe not even the center for the 3rd preseason game. It all depends, because a lot of people aren't going to be playing Thursday in Atlanta. But I feel like now the jury's out, and that's going to free up that spot for either like a McFarland or like a wide receiver 6 that could be somebody like, basically it's going to be, I think, Gunnar, because when we talked about this, not to get too long-winded, dude, I'm going to leave some meat on the bone for you, but like Deontay, we got to go through the numbers again. Deontay, George Pickens, right? Allen Robinson, Calvin Austin. There's 4. And we think Miles Boykin, who made a tremendous play as well on special teams in this game, he's got to be the 5th guy. And if you have Austin, who returned 50 yards for a punt already as your primary returner, Gunnar, is he really there as just a wide receiver? And he seems kind of like a safety blanket for some of these guys. And he seems like he could do a lot of utilitarian type things and also be kind of a backup. We saw this with Steve Sims last year. This was my argument with Steve Sims. Are they going to keep Steve Sims if they already have Gunnar? They signed Gunnar. He's like a former Pro Bowler as a special teamer. So now the argument is like they got Calvin Austin. Why do they need Gunnar? Well, I think it's going to end up being the same exact situation. Maybe it's not a 2 dogs, 1 bone type thing, and then both these guys end up sticking, because when you look further down the roster at like Cody White, Hakeem Butler did nothing in this game. I think Hakeem's completely like on the outside looking in. So what are your thoughts on how all this shakes out, man? All the skill positions, because like they could keep 6 wide receivers. Now, I don't see any path to the roster for Kendrick Green. And has McFarland really done enough? He's in a kick returner role. They're going to need somebody to return kicks. You no longer have like Benny Snell that's there in a really good kind of special teams type role to kind of pick up any of the slack there, so to speak.
I think I did say a lot of this last show.
Yeah.
I said there was a way for them to keep 6 receivers. We broke it all down. Gunnar would be the 6, naturally.
I was paying
McFarland.
I was paying attention, but this is like recap now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think McFarland makes the team as the 3 still. You need 3 running backs. I'd be pretty surprised if they just kept 2. And there's no real competition to be the 3rd guy. So I think McFarland still has a good chance to make it. I think Gunner's the 6. I don't think much has changed with this guy. I think everything is pretty much still how it was from last game, because none of the no-name guys have enough of a window to jump through to make the team, and nobody's doing enough to make it. Nobody's making plays. Like Cody White, Hakeem Butler, Dez Fitzpatrick had a nice tackle on punt team, but none of the receivers are sniffing the top 6, where we already have the 4 spots we know of, and then Gunner and Boykin as well. Running back, there's no running back competing with McFarland. Like, they signed the one dude from Arizona State who had like 1 nice carry. That was pretty much it. I forget his name already.
Xavier, like, he's got an X kind of name. I forget what it is too, but it's Valaday. He had 5 carries for only 4 yards. He was another guy that was sub 1 yard per carry, which is kind of sad in that aspect. But no, what I was saying before was like, I was advocating to make room for Kendrick Green, and how do you do it? And there's enough history with the team only keeping 2 running backs. Like, they only had like Bell and D'Angelo, and in fact, they only had Bell and Blunt. And that was part of that problem with, I always forget that guy's name that always talks like, he talks shit on Ben after the fact, and everybody else was like, he went in for the postseason game when they ended up signing Ben Tate. Was it like Josh Christian?
Josh Harris.
Josh Harris, yeah. So he was that was a situation I don't know if they want to be in that type of situation again. But Trey Edmonds was another guy that was always like kind of called up. Terrell Watson did make the roster, then he was back and forth on and off with transactions. It depends on injuries and stuff and what you want to keep in other spots. The other kind of primary example of that was Fitztoussaint. Fitztoussaint was a 3rd guy, but they didn't keep 3 on the roster at that one point. I want to say he was still a practice squad guy. Jordan Todman, another guy.
It depends if they think depends if they think they can sneak McFarland onto practice squad.
Yeah, exactly. That's always
because they might not be able to. So
always the risk, and just for the layman's terms is that means when you release this player, they're going to be subject to waivers if they're not a tenured NFL player. They don't become a free agent. So every single team has a crack to put in for a player. This happened with Miles Boykin 2 years ago. He got waived by the Ravens, and it goes in order of the draft order up until like the trade deadline, the original draft order. And then it starts to go by what would be the new draft order and everybody's standings. So the team with like the first pick, Chicago, technically has that pecking order. They would get a shot at like Anthony McFarland, for example, first. So if they put in a waiver claim for him, it doesn't matter who else after that does. So the Steelers are sitting there. What's their natural position? Somewhere in the middle of the pecking order, right? Was it 16, 17 this year? And
17, I think.
Yeah, I try to remember because the Dolphins screwed up everything. They're still in there, even though they didn't have a 1st round pick. So like and teams aren't just looking to snap up. They probably have very few spots open themselves, but if there's somebody that they scouted or wanted, the only like encouraging thing here with somebody like McFarland is that he's already gone through that once before last year, and they were able to land him on the practice squad. So mainly speaking, I'm trying to see like if McFarland or Gunner can end up making the roster. Like, I wasn't a Gunner guy, like even on our last show. I was kind of like, well, I think the team might see a little bit of something different with him this time around.
Yeah, I think that the offense just doesn't give me much. I'm not really stressing over the offense and who's going to make it, because I think it's still pretty straightforward. The defense is where I'm way more like racking my brain over. It's the defensive back room in particular. It's really hard to figure out. And the middle linebackers who they're valuing as keeping, because I tried just listing out stars of the game of the last game. And there's, aside from Kenny, you've got Isaac Sumalo and Jalen Warren, Calvin Austin, Pat Freiermuth, obvious ones. But you also have guys like Joey Porter Jr., Elijah Riley, Shandon Sullivan, Tanner Muse. All these guys had really good showings, and Porter's obviously safe. But where is the guy who's going to get cut? I don't think Trey Norwood has any chance of making the team at this point because he's missed so much camp. They could put him on IR, I suppose, but he hasn't played all camp. He hasn't played in a single preseason game yet. And in the defensive back room, it's airtight right now. There isn't much room for air. So that is where my eyes are drawn to right now with the preseason. It's more so on the defense, because the offense, I feel like if they're going to keep the 3 quarterbacks, they're going to keep 3 running backs, 6 receivers, and the 4 tight ends. And then the line comes down to hopefully about 9 guys. And I don't have the ability to do all the math right now and figure out an exact.
No, you're in there. Yeah, you're close.
That's how I like see the offense is shaping out pretty much. And I don't see anybody else who's going to succeed the 3rd running back, the 6th receiver, or the 4th tight end. I feel like all of those spots are pretty, like, whether it's Boykin or Gunner, either or, one of them has the 6th spot. And then with tight end, like the Rodney Williams isn't going to succeed Connor Hayward or Darnell Washington, obviously.
Yeah.
So the offense, I almost feel like, I don't want to say it's already set, but it's not something that I'm really thinking about much when I'm comparing it to the defense, where the secondary, there's about 12 guys in the secondary right now who a lot of people feel like are safe for every other reason. You've got Minka, DeMonte Casey, Keanu Neal, Miles Killebrew, Trey Norwood, Kenny Robinson, Elijah Riley, Patrick Peterson, Levi Wallace, Joey Porter, James Pierre, Shandon Sullivan. That's 12 names. The Steelers kept 10 defensive backs last year. So if they were to try to do the same thing this year, they could not. They could keep 9, they could keep 11. But if they keep 10 defensive backs, you got to cut 2 names from that list I just rattled off. And clearly, Minka is safe, and KZ, Neal is safe, Patrick Peterson, Joey Porter, Levi Wallace, they're all safe. But then you get into the Trey Norwood thing, not playing all preseason. Miles Killebrew, he's a special teams captain. He's the punt block god from the past season, and he does a really good job for Danny Smith. So I think he's safe, but some people think he shouldn't be because he's a complete liability on defense. Well, I'm not thinking about using him on defense like at all. It's strictly special teams with him.
Yeah.
And the same could be said, but in a different way, for James Pierre. A lot of people point to James Pierre and they say, oh, well, he's not safe. And my thing with James Pierre is he's the last of 4 guys that play outside corner for the Steelers. You got Peterson, Levi Wallace, Joey Porter, and then James Pierre. There's nobody else that plays outside confidently. And what the Steelers have been doing throughout camp is they've been moving Patrick Peterson all around the formation. They've been putting him at nickel, dime, back at safety. They've been practicing this and hoping to do this. So if they were to lose an outside body for an extended period of time, like Levi Wallace or Joey Porter Jr., and they don't keep James Pierre, they can't move Peterson around or use him like they want to use him, because he would have to strictly play outside corner at that point. So they have a lot of eggs in the we're going to move Patrick Peterson around the formation basket. So James Pierre benefits from that as being their last and only reliable outside guy that they could put into the game if they were to lose Wallace or Porter for any amount of time and still not miss a beat. Behind him, there's nobody. James Pierre also offers you special teams value. Last year, he was on all 4 phases, I believe, so they like him for that too. So I feel like whereas he isn't somebody you want starting 17 games for you, I feel like he's pretty safe. So you're really looking at names like Trey Norwood, Kenny Robinson, Elijah Riley, and Shandon Sullivan. That's the bottom 4, probably fighting it out for to not be the last cut. Because I already think Norwood's going to go. So who's it going to be between Kenny Robinson, Elijah Riley, and Shandon Sullivan? That's extremely intriguing because, I mean, Shandon Sullivan and Elijah Riley both got interceptions last game and looked rather impressive. The both of them did. Is there room for both? There could be. I'm not personally someone that thinks there is. I know Brooke Pryor from ESPN tweeted during the game that she thought that Shandon Sullivan and Riley will both make the team. So that's a conversation out there. I just don't see that being the best way for them to maximize the few spots they have up for grabs in the secondary. And the same conversation I'm having right now can be said for the middle linebacker room to a lesser degree, because you got guys fighting for that last spot. Tanner Muse coming off his best performance, but you got Mark Robinson, who the Steelers like and a lot of fans like as well. And the defensive line could be said the same thing. The defensive line, I didn't list any defensive linemen as any of my stars of the game last week. It didn't do anything bad, but they didn't jump off the screen at all. So I think Adams is still in a position where he's still fighting for a spot, the veteran in camp. And I think Brendan Fehoko and Armand Watts and Isaiah Loudermilk, that they're all still duking it out for a few amount of spots available on that defensive line. And it seems to be that vibe for each level of the defense right now. Still, that's still like the last 2 to 3 guys fighting it out, and it's super interesting, but it's also like frustrating at the same time because you want to figure out who's going to stay.
Well, okay, so I'm going to jump back to your numbers on offense real quick and then back to defense. You've hit very many good points. The first thing was just math, okay? I think we had somewhere around 24 players on offense, right? And then you have 26 players maybe on defense and your 3 specialists. That's how you get to 53. So you got 50 players, almost the even-Steven split. We got plus or minus 1 on each side of the ball. That would be with 9 offensive linemen. That would have been counting Kendrick Green as an offensive lineman, with 3 running backs, 5 wide receivers, and 4 tight ends. So if they only go with, and that wasn't with Spencer Anderson. I can't figure out what to do with Spencer Anderson right now. But it's 7th round pick.
I would keep Anderson over Green right now.
Oh yeah, but do you put him on a 53, a 7th round pick? Like, that might be somebody that you could put on the practice squad. You need to have those 8 offensive linemen in order to have the extra 2 eligible game day to call up from the practice squad then. So they've done the boomerang thing with Anthony McFarland Jr. before. They're going to have the 4 tight ends, as we said. You can't risk just having Washington as the only guy with Freiermuth, even though if Gentry doesn't play or get a helmet on some game days, and they clearly have packages for Connor Hayward. God forbid, let's say something happens to Kenny. I swear Mitch Trubisky absolutely loves looking for Connor Hayward on the field. Like, it's like he is a safety blanket type of guy. So that plays into what you keep on defense, because you mentioned you've got so many defensive linemen that you like. If they keep 10 defensive backs, which is what they did, and we almost have to call them defensive backs because it's not always going to be just position agnostic here with some guys like Elijah Riley, for example. Chandon Sullivan, is he just going to be like pigeonholed as a nickel slot guy? Patrick Peterson's moving around like we said Cam Sutton did, and he even had a quote somewhere in the press saying about the same thing, and having Joey Porter Jr. get out there, which, by the way, that the interception that Joey Porter Jr. ended up getting and giving the game ball to his dad up in the stands, wasn't that like one of the coolest things ever? Like, you had to feel good for him. It felt like almost like a Kenny Pickett type moment last year. Remember, they were chanting Kenny, like for the third quarter to get Kenny to play, and then Joey ends up making a play like that. But he wasn't the only one. I mean, they were playing. If you haven't been in Heinz Field or Acrisure Stadium before, they play Red Hot Chili Peppers. Give it away, give it away, give it away now. Like, they play it like all the time. That's not the name of the song though, is it? But I'm terrible with music trivia. But
I know the song.
Well, you know the song, but I don't know the actual name of it. Like, that might be the name. Give it away. But they played that like 4 times. Like, it was just absolutely wild. And there's a name you haven't even mentioned yet in all of this mix of it. And he's got a roster spot. There's no way, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But looking at the playing time of guys who didn't get into game 2 of the preseason here, on the defensive side of the ball, those guys were Quincy Roche, Keanu Benton. He's safe. That might have been like, I think he had a foot thing or something during the week, and they may have just had him playing special teams. And then Luke Barku only got in on special teams. So Roche and Barku only got in on special teams. Writing's on the wall. Even though I like Barku, he's going to play this whole game against Atlanta probably, but that's just to preserve somebody else. Unless he really turns some heads, that's almost like that's a death knell for somebody trying to make the roster. Some other stars from the game. Your outside linebacker depth. Your starting outside linebackers, like Alex Highsmith, he put that pressure on Josh Allen, and then he just still came back around and made the play. Because
he covered Stephon Diggs one-on-one.
I know, right? That was insane.
That was insane to see that.
That was crazy. But Marcus,
and everybody at home sunk in their chairs when they saw him lined up on him. Like, oh, here we go, Keith Butler flashbacks, Vietnam, and then Highsmith locks him up, follows him across the middle, over across, tips the ball away. Beautiful coverage, looking like Sean Taylor.
I was like, earn that bag, bro. Earn that bag. So
yeah, for a guy who just got paid, he's only getting better, it seems like.
Oh, I know. And Nick Herbig makes me feel like, should they have given, I love Alex Highsmith, but then I look at Herbig and I'm like, holy cow. Like, This is
He's killing it.
it's gonna be a problem, and I know it's like that varsity JV type thing, like but Tomlin said that with like Arthur Motes, or we've seen it with Tuzar Skipper. It is not the same. This is like when Martavis Bryant came into the preseason and just torched everyone. You're like, this dude's gonna light the league on fire. How they get Herbig on the field is going to be beyond me, but it's going to be nice though that they got a stable and they got a rotation of guys that Herbig could just go get it. Was that a
championship formula?
Sack? He almost recovered the fumble from that strip sack.
Yeah,
mind blown.
Not natural what he's able to do, and it's different. Like you already hinted at there, it's a totally different vibe. We all have been watching this Steeler preseason and been doing this long enough to know when a guy's just being a preseason darling and it isn't going to translate to the regular season. And the vibe is totally different with Nick Herbig. He's getting national recognition to a level of even people that who I feel like go out of their way all the time to talk about what the Steelers don't do well, what they don't do right. They are salivating over Nick Herbig. I'm talking about guys like Warren Sharp. And the other day I saw Sean Merriman, the lights out, one of the famous outside edge rushers of the 2000s. He said he grabbed the sack video and tweeted, "This is either you have this or you don't. This kind of bend. Like it's an elite pass rusher trait. The way Herbig is able to get low underneath the lineman and not totally throw his balance off so that he's still able to go full speed at the quarterback. It's something that like Von Miller does really well. James Harrison did it really well. It's a very good skill to have in your cap. And Herbig does it at a rate and at an intensity and at a quickness that is starter level. He'll be a starter one day in this league. Yeah. And to have him as your third or fourth guy right now, it's going to pay dividends for the Steelers. It's a championship formula. You want guys who can come in for your stars and still give you something, not worry the whole time and wonder when the stars are going to come back out. You want to get to a point where you're almost looking forward to seeing guys like Nick Herbig on the field. And I feel like Steeler Nation is already almost there. And Marcus Golden as well is no slouch. He's been having a good camp too. And he forced a holding call, Marcus Golden did, on the first team offensive line for the Bills, because Herbig and Golden were both given the opportunity to play during a time where Josh Allen and the Bills' first team defense was still in. And guess what? They scored 0 points. 0 points.
Yeah. I'm usually I like try to temper my expectations, especially a 4th round pick for Herbig. And you already had like 4 really good picks ahead of him in this Steelers draft. It just makes you think and wonder, like, how many guys did they steal this year? Stole Kenny last year. Like, this is like masterclass stuff, just going from Kevin Colbert, to Omar Khan, to Ben, to Kenny Pickett, Mike Tomlin still at the helm. I'm not as worried about depth pretty much anywhere on the roster these days. Like, I just look around and I'm like, you finally got like positions locked down to where you got guys that either have some playing experience, or you've brought in some veterans, or you got some promising rookies with upside. It's a championship material, like you just said. And
if I were to die tomorrow, I would die thinking like this is the best draft class of my lifetime that I've seen, because I haven't seen anything happen or come to fruition yet. But if I were to just pass away tomorrow, I would think this is the best draft class that I've seen accumulated. And we all kind of, as Steeler fans, had the hope and the feeling that we may have just pulled off one of the best drafts of recent memory, because strictly the value that we got throughout the entirety of it. Yes, they traded up for Broderick Jones, but Joey Porter Jr. was largely viewed at by everyone as a first-round pick. The same can be said about Darnell Washington. And when Keanu Benton was available at the top of the second round, the analysts on TV were talking about how the Steelers might pick him at 32. They picked Joey Porter and got Keanu Benton like 20 picks later. And then when day 3 started, I remember watching on NFL Network, the best available player per Daniel Jeremiah was Nick Herbig. And the Steelers got him like 20 picks into it. So I don't know how they were able to do it, but we're all seeing what we thought had happened with getting such a steal of a draft kind of play out now in the preseason. Will it translate to the regular season? Of course, we obviously hope so. And that's the one critique and the one argument that you can't really overcome right now is people that want to come back and throw that in your face. Like, thank you. Yes, we know it's preseason. That's what happens during this time of the year. Like, when all
Yeah.
things considered, we look as good as possible right now. It's like it's hard to compute what we're seeing sometimes, what I'm seeing sometimes, because it's going that well. It's surreal at times.
It really is. And Herbig wasn't the guy I was probably looking forward to popping off the page in the preseason games. Actually, that would be Darnell Washington, who we still need to address. But here we
Yeah.
go. Herbig, 40 total defensive snaps in the preseason. He has 4 pressures, 2.5 sacks with a forced fumble. He has got a 22.7% pass rush win rate and only allowed the 1 reception for 4 yards. The 22.7, like, that's some TJ Watt stuff there. Like, that's high up there when it comes to win rates. Like, if you're winning like about a quarter of the time, that's pretty rich in the NFL. So, whew, like, and now Mount Washington, I'm like, let's get this guy the ball. Let's get this guy the ball. And it's not through any fault of Mitch Trubisky. He put it up there where dude can get it. Was he double covered almost like on the one, and like
The one, definitely.
like it was like pass interference from both corners. They both
Yeah.
couldn't cover him.
They made a sandwich.
Yeah, they sandwiched him. He had one in front, one from behind. Like the guy was like, prison rules here, and like, so
I think Darnell would be pretty safe.
yeah, he would, man. Maybe like Green Mile, like nobody'd want to mess with him, like Michael Clark Duncan or something. Like he's just so massive, like on the field. Like again, you see like his size on paper, and it doesn't compute until you see 80 out there in a uniform.
I'll tell you, I've never seen back-to-back pass interferences on the same player in the same area of the field on like the same throw. Basically, it was like, let's try again. Boom, pass interference, back-to-back, and it was he hasn't had any flashy big plays or big touchdowns. I'm talking Darnell Washington.
Yeah.
But seeing the back-to-back pass interferences, it doesn't get much better than that in the end zone too.
Yeah, totally. And just kept the drive alive. And I know it was like a little bit of a struggle there with some of the backups of Mitch and trying to get that all on the same page. So, of course, when you're down there on the 1 yard line, it makes things a little trickier too. But they couldn't get the push to run the ball, which is where I go back to like the McFarland stuff and everything like that. But yeah, I felt like I was down on Tanner Muse. And now Tanner Muse is back on my radar for making this roster.
I feel the same way. He was like he was popping off the screen a little bit, and I figured him more as a special teams guy, which he is. But he did well as a linebacker last game.
Yeah, I'm trying to see how much Muse was in, and he's one of the guys who played the most, which might also help. So this gives you an idea of guys that might be fighting for a roster spot, having to show a little more. James
The
Pierre.
coaches want to get a good look at him. I know Kenny Robinson played a lot too.
Yeah, Kenny Robinson was the second most snaps. So you had James Pierre play 37 reps in this game, 62% of the game. Then 31 was 52%. So there must have been 60 defensive plays, we'll just call it. So 31 plays for Kenny Robinson and Tanner Muse. David Perales was out there for 30 of them, but that was mostly second half. Nick Herbig was out there for 27. And, hey, sorry, David Perales, but Herbig made the most of his time out there. That's what you got to do. And not that Herbig is as a rookie being brought in, he's as a 4th round pick, he's probably safe anyways, unless he was like really bad. I mean, just look at Kendrick Green. Enough said.
Oh yeah, and he's been a star of the preseason, so the rest of the NFL world knows about Herbig. So they don't want to mess around with trying to sneak him to practice squad. He's about as safe as it gets.
Yep. So Herbig plays 27 snaps, as does Isaiah Loudermilk, who also has been showing on a little bit here too. Trenton Thompson didn't look so hot on a couple of these plays. So we're talking about Elijah Riley and Kenny Robinson. Well, Thompson, we talk about winners and losers. Thompson more probably on the loser side. Quan Alexander. Let's talk about this a little bit. We saw a mixture of Landon Roberts, Cole Holcomb, and Quan Alexander at different times. I saw a third down, which I don't think I saw this at all last year, with 2 inside linebackers on the field. Like that was, and it was Quan Alexander and Cole Holcomb if you had to take out the guesswork. Chris Wilcox played 24 snaps.
Holcomb looked good.
Yeah, Holcomb looked real
Holcomb
good.
looked good.
Oh, yeah. Holcomb looked real good. So did Mark Robinson. Mark Robinson had a hit where he absolutely flattened somebody, and there was just a collective ooh on the field.
Rob, I remember that hit. And Holcomb, the whole reason Riley got a pick was because it bounced off of Holcomb's hands.
Correct.
Down by the end zone. And there were a couple plays where, over the past few years, gotten used to seeing running backs take chunk plays out of the Steelers. There was a couple plays where Holcomb met the guy at the line of scrimmage or right behind, and that was very encouraging to see, dealing with all the linebacker issues we've had in recent memory.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. It's almost jarring that stands out as much as it did, because it did not stand out. And how about that? We should probably make a note of Miles Jack retiring yesterday, or putting notice that he's going to retire. Maybe not official because 4 p.m. NFL weekday, whatever, but. Said he was like he was sitting out there collecting dust in free agency up until this point. Eagles brought him in like a week or two ago, and he said he was contemplating. I guess he was like got idle hands. He was getting bored and wanted to be an electrician or a plumber, according to the reports that were out there. So I mean, good for him. I think he's made like 40 or 50 million in his career, and he's 27 years of age. Like, dude, go start yourself at a plumbing business or whatever. And
he said he's been
busy.
Blessed with money that he doesn't have to do anything, but he's too bored to not do anything.
Yeah, I'll name drop the, Mama Jack, meeting her. She was so nice. Like, I kind of feel bad it didn't work out in Pittsburgh for him, but I guess the knee thing, who's to say, man? I mean, I had problems when I was in my 20s too, lower back and everything, and everybody's like, you're too young for this stuff, and people quick to criticize they hadn't gone through it themselves. So, I mean, this guy doesn't have to put himself at risk if he felt like he doesn't love football anymore, or, maybe the writing was on the wall too. People were like, dicks, and they're like, hey, he's going to get cut. Well, maybe, probably. So he just saved the Eagles a little bit of trouble there, and maybe he helped the locker room for a couple of weeks. You don't know that. You don't know anybody's personal story. So, my hat's off to Miles Jack. I always thought highly of Jack, and it's a shame that it doesn't work out that way. But the end result now is the silver lining is that the Steelers got like a whole stable of dudes. And this all started by saying like Tanner Muse and how many snaps and everything that he played, and still going through some of the other names like Tony Ndikwe played 22 snaps, Armon Watts 22 snaps. So Watts is in that conversation too. You start to get into like the pseudo starters too, like Holcomb. Okay, Holcomb plays 20. That's because he's going to be a starter. Elliott, another safety, not really on my radar. I didn't think he made like any of the biggest plays. I can't even tell you his first name right now. So
there's just no room, dude. That's the whole thing. Is I actually like Thompson for practice squad quite a bit, but it's like there's no point in listing him with the 12 names I listed before, because those are the consensus 12 guys where you got like 8 locks on there, and then the other guys are names that most people either expect to be fighting for the last few spots, or so that's why I didn't bother listing guys like Elliott or Thompson, because they no offense to these young men, but they have no chance at making the 53. But Thompson's an intriguing body for the practice squad. I like his size, and he had a good pick in the Tampa Bay game. But last game, as you already stated, it wasn't a good showing for him. So more of a practice squad guy there.
Yeah, and you had mentioned this stuff with Miles Killebrew too. So Mike Tomlin company, they have a lot of work to do. I didn't really go through any of the offensive stats, but there's a guy named something Ryan that's a linebacker. I was in camp, and this guy wasn't on my camp roster. It's one of these guys they add, or just wasn't practicing or whatever, and you're just like, okay, he's out there for 9 snaps. James Nyamwaya,
I got some white dude
Marshall.
playing wide receiver too. I never seen him before until camp the other day. He's number 85. I have no idea who he is.
Yeah,
he into the field though last game.
And it's sad to say, because you go through like Kendrick Green, like legitimately played. He played 54 snaps. He played 82% of the game. And, they're trying to test him to see, is he getting pushed around? Is he going to commit penalties and stuff like that? Gunnar Olszewski plays 51 snaps in this game, 77%. Broderick Jones, we already mentioned earlier, played 45. Ryan McCullum ends up getting out there playing 37. Now, he couldn't have played 37 at center.
Gunnar was in on Jalen Warren's run.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people might have noticed that, but Gunnar was in there with the first team. So relating back to our early topic on this show, it does seem maybe not obvious, but Gunnar has that 6th spot locked up. If they're going to keep 6, the 6th spot is his. And if they keep 5, it's him and Boykin fighting for that last 5th spot.
Yeah, I've come around to it, dude. You didn't have to talk me into it too much. It's just a matter of seeing the pieces fall where they may be.
And
And
they might keep 5. I thought they were going to keep 6 receivers every year, like of my fandom, but they keep 5 sometimes, and they're just like, we'll get by.
yeah, that was my thing last year. I didn't think Steve Sims was, I was just like, expendable, And then
Yeah.
not only does he end up making the team, but he ends up like playing like right after. When did Gunnar do the fumble? Patriots, right? That was the second game. That was the home
Yes,
opener.
yeah.
So like Gunnar loses that job. Then Gunnar wasn't cut. And Gunnar had like a decent little, like, didn't have like all the money in the world that you say, but it was something like $2 million. You know what I mean? That's something you could throw. That's like Marcus Golden money, like a aging veteran, role player guy that might offer a little more. Maybe not as a wide receiver 5 or 6, but just going down the list of guys that play, like McCollum, LaRaven Clark, is it William Dunkel, Cody White, Cook, Anderson, Mount Washington's up in there, Zach Gentry, Trubisky, Kevin Dotson, again, somebody I think that could be a trade candidate because they're maybe a little top heavy with the interior alignment. And I don't think Dotson offers you anything as being able to play center too. Then again, neither does Kendrick Green at this point. So, and I guess Spencer Anderson's played every single position in college. So he just hasn't had, just because he hasn't had that opportunity in camp or preseason games where we haven't seen that look. Now, I think he's taken some center reps in training camp, if my memory serves me correctly. So just because he hasn't doesn't mean, they're trying to test and make sure, are we absolutely 100% correct about these guys like Kendrick Green? I almost said Des Fitzpatrick, or is it Des Fitzpatrick?
That's his name.
Yeah, that is his name. I was thinking like, wait a minute, Des, not the Des we're thinking of, Des Bryant. Miles Boykin plays a little bit in here. Calvin Austin, Connor Hayward, Rodney Williams, Greg Bell gets quite a bit of time too. Greg Bell, let's say if Greg Bell, this is one of the things we might see in this upcoming preseason game. If Greg Bell gets some kick return, I'm not sure that he did, but if they use him as a kick returner, I could tell you in a second if he actually did. No, just McFarland, because says they had the one. That's right, because they didn't allow Buffalo to score, so we didn't get to see anything else. But if they put Greg Bell back there on Thursday, Greg Bell could be in competition for that McFarland spot. I just think, like you said, and you said this on the last show, McFarland, like they all offer you something different between Harris, Warren, and McFarland. So I'm still leaning towards they might try that. And it gave this Valladay like a lot of snaps too. He had 12 snaps that were out there, and then the rest kind of starts to sprinkle into starters like Suamalo and Deontay and et cetera, et cetera. So going to be interesting to see. There isn't much to say about the Thursday game, so we're not going to get into any pregame show for that on the short time. It's already early this week. We'll be back around later this week with a post game, however, because we're going to be trying to figure out who might be making this roster, and we have a pretty good inkling of there's really only a couple of spots up for grabs. This is a whole different change of pace, like you said. Now you're seeing the Steelers start to build depth, and when you start to build depth, you're building teams that are they're contenders. When we're talking about only backup players, like there's teams that, they don't know they're starting quarterback. They don't know they're starting whatever. They have like 5 spots up there. That's what the Falcons are going to be doing. I wouldn't be surprised if you see maybe, depending on the coaching staffs, they all have different philosophies on who's playing and whatnot, but I don't expect to see Kenny Pickett, Najee. I don't expect to see most of the offensive line on Thursday. I don't expect to see Pat Freiermuth. I don't expect to see Deontay. If George Pickens goes out there, it's just because they need a couple of bodies. He's going to be out there for like 2 snaps, 1 series or something like that. So there's not going to be a whole lot. No TJ Watt, no Cam Hayward, no Minka. It's going to be the rest of these guys that we mentioned that played like a whole lot of reps already. Kendrick Green, Gunnar. Green might already be out. He may already be out. So that may even happen too. They may just move on and say, let's see what McCollum could do. Let's see if Anderson's going to play in this spot instead, because you got a pretty clear picture from these last 2 games on Kendrick Green. But those are the guys you're going to probably see more of. And then, unfortunately, like our Luke Barkus of the world that didn't even get in on defense, playing in the second half, probably play about 20 snaps, going to have to really make a statement in order to stick to the roster.
Yeah, you'd rather it be like this than have like 10 guys who suck. You know what I mean? You'd rather be fighting for the last, like, I'd say the Steelers have about 49, 50 spots that they know who they're going to go to. And it's like 3 or 4 guys fighting it out for those last spots. So it's a position you want to be in as a good team. Like you said, we're talking about strictly all of like the bottom of the depth chart battles going on, which is good because we have everything else figured out. And everything seems in order. The Steelers are putting up points. The offense literally, quite literally, couldn't be doing better. Kenny Pickett has been given 3 offensive drives and scored 3 offensive touchdowns. Yes, I'm giving him credit for the Jaylen Warren 62-yard run because he was quarterback for that. So that counts under his stats. And yeah, I'm going to be missing most of the yeah, right. Is that good? I'm going to be missing
most of they weren't scoring last year. So there you go.
Yeah, the touchdown to George Pickens versus the Buccaneers and Jaylen Warren's touchdown are 2 of the longest touchdowns we've seen in 2 or 3 years. So that's great to see. Very encouraging stuff taking place with the offense and the evolution of the offense. I'll be missing some of the Thursday game anyway, because that's first night of my only vacation of the summer. So I'm going to be tuning in as much as I can, via my phone, but I'm kind of hoping nobody important plays because I don't want to miss anything sweet.
Preseason GOAT. What are you doing, preseason GOAT?
My preseason GOAT's got one of his boys getting married, so he's got to go to the bachelor party.
Oh, okay. A Thursday bachelor party. Is he getting married this weekend too?
No, it's Thursday through Saturday.
Okay. I just did that. That's
go
why.
Home Sunday.
So yeah, full disclosure, that was me. I was in Chicago for a bachelor party. Actually, 2 dudes that are friends. They're both the groom and best man in each other's weddings that are coming up in the fall, and we all went. There were 13 of us out in Chicago partying it up, and nice. I had to watch the game from my hotel room Friday night, and they're mostly Browns fans too, because all the people are from Northeast Ohio originally, so they found a Browns backer bar, and I was like, I'm not going there. So I was remanded to my hotel room. My buddy his flight was delayed and hadn't come in yet, so he had his room key anyways. He's one of the 2 that are getting married, so he's my roomie that are downtown Chicago. And I was I was able to watch the game and get a podcast in. So thank you, whatever airline he went on, Delta, United, or whatever. It was I wouldn't have to worry about when I was going to be able to talk. But yeah, that's got to get it in where you can, man. Maybe Thursday might be one of the few ones I'll get to see a little less uninterrupted as well. Although I really wasn't interrupted. I was there in person for the game Saturday. A 6:30 start was a little odd too, a little awkward. These preseason games are all over the place. But there's not going to be a whole lot. I watch these on TV, and I'm not going to lie, I'm just like every one of you too. It's I get geeked up. There's only so much I could get geeked up when Greg Bell's in running the ball for 2.4 yard average. I can't do it.
It's the first 30 minutes are super exciting, and then it kind of falls off.
Yeah, it does. It tapers off entirely. But some of the names that we said, so keep an eye on just maybe the first quarter, second quarter guys. Mitch will probably start that game, I would imagine. I mean, we've even gotten to see Tanner Morgan a little bit. I wasn't expecting to see him at all.
I don't think we got to see Kenny anymore this preseason. No. I mean, what more do you got to see, really?
You don't. Just get these guys keep them healthy and get them ready for the regular season. And hopefully, knock on wood, that the Steelers stay like that for the rest of this. For the last game here, you don't even want depth guys to get hurt, because you need them to be able. That's where a lot of things get Ryan Shazier gets hurt, and it's Tyler Matakevich wasn't ready to just step in and play. They had to get Sean Spence off the street, and LJ Ford or whatever was a practice squad guy. So that kind of stuff happens. But anyways, we're up against it. Thank you, Flash, as always, for joining me here, joining us, and speaking to the people. And good luck with your bachelor party, and watching on the NFL Plus or the app or whatever.
X.
Yeah, X. I still got to change it. I haven't had time. I'm traveling Chicago, Pittsburgh, whatever. I'll get to change the graphics at some time from the.
I'm going to keep calling it Twitter, dude. It's the Heinz Field thing. Joey Porter, actually, after the game, they're interviewing him about his interception. He's yeah, it's crazy getting to Heinz Field. And nobody even corrected him. And I was I guess he can get a pass with that.
Sorry, it was a little bit of a beverage. I was we're up against it. I had to get a coffee there. Folks, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, leave a rating wherever you're watching or listening from. We appreciate you. My name's Joe. His name's Zach. Until after this game, maybe we'll do a little 53. I'll just see if Brian's around. We may even do it live. We could do a post game. Why the hell not? So until next time, we encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good. We'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.